Some of you will see a face, but some of you will see a figure in a coat. So, not everyone interpreted that image in the same way. Different people saw different things. Your experience of the world around you is coloured by expectation and open to influence. So, if you witnessed a crime, then it's entirely possible that you might misperceive some elements of the events in the first place, even before you memorise them. The circumstances of the crime, like whether the offender has a weapon, can also influence how the witness remembers the crime. The weapon focus effect suggests that when a weapon is involved, the witness's memory of the criminal's physical appearance is impaired because the witness's attention is drawn to the weapon and away from the criminal's face. This is something that has been demonstrated in laboratory studies, where researchers have been trying to find out why this happens. One explanation for this effect is that witnesses are so scared by the weapon that they fixate on the source of the threat to the exclusion of more peripheral cues. Another explanation is that the weapon is an unusual or surprising item, and that is why it draws the witness's attention away from other things in the scene. Jonathan Fawcett of Dalhousie University and his colleagues did a study combining all previous research into what's called a meta-analysis, which suggested that there's some empirical support for both of these explanations. The weapon focus effect can be harder to reproduce in real-world settings, leading some people to suggest that it's only something that happens under simulated conditions. However, recent work indicates that the problem with the real-world work is compromised by other issues. For example, a suspect with a weapon is more likely to be bolder in terms of getting closer to a witness or staying at the scene for longer. This means that the negative effect of the weapon on the eyewitness's memory of the suspect's face is cancelled out by the fact that they had a better opportunity to see the suspect. When Jonathan Fawcett examined this in their meta-analysis, they did find a weapon focus effect that was unaffected by whether the event was simulated or real. What does the weapon focus effect mean for eyewitness testimony? Well, we need to be aware of the potential for a witness's memory accuracy to be worse in situations where a weapon is present. However, the size of this effect depends on a number of interacting factors that need to be taken into account, such as eyewitness confidence, length of time that passes before the memory is retrieved, and the duration of the original event, and the level of threat. That is, we can't assume that just because there's a weapon present, then it means that any eyewitness testimony must be inaccurate. We need to take into account the circumstances. Another implication of the weapon focus effect is that it may be possible to train people likely to be exposed to situations involving weapons, such as police officers, to avoid this bias. So, that's just one example of a bias that affects the encoding stage of eyewitness memory. There are many other factors like this that influence an eyewitness's memory and can't be controlled after the event by the criminal justice system. Collectively, these factors are called estimated variables and include things like how long the eyewitness saw the perpetrator for, how much stress the eyewitness was under, whether the eyewitness was the same race, gender, and age as the perpetrator or not, how good the eyewitness's view of the perpetrator was, whether the perpetrator changed or masked their appearance, and whether the eyewitness saw the perpetrator's face from more than one angle. So, there are many factors that can influence the accuracy of an eyewitness's memory at the encoding stage, and understanding these factors may be useful in determining how accurate an eyewitness's memory is. However, that's just the beginning of the process, and every step of the memory process brings even more variables into the equation.